Only a couple days now from the start of the NFL draft, and there's so much misdirection out there. What do you believe? What don't you believe? That plus more on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for April 22nd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day. That's because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes on the YouTube page, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And normally we've got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line wide open like some old school TV antennas. 707-654-4693 is normally how we close out the show. We won't today. The reason for that is really good interview on my radio show on Monday with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. He's a senior NFL writer. He literally was making calls to NFL teams on Monday, trying to see where they are just a handful of days away from the draft when it came to quarterbacks, when it came to the running backs, when it came to offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Now, he was making those calls. He referenced how many different teams told him what on Monday. Now, again, a lot of that could be misdirection. A lot of teams could be feeding him what they want him to go back and report, what they want him to hear, so they can kind of throw them off the scent of what they're really going to do in the draft coming up starting on Thursday. But I thought it was some really good stuff. Not even going to get the whole interview in because it was almost like 20-something minutes, but going to get the majority of it. Really good stuff. So we won't have any calls or texts coming up in segment number 3 because Charles Robinson, the conversation was just long enough where I'm going to have to split it up, segment number 2 and segment number 3. But I don't think that that's a bad decision. I think that that's a good decision because the conversation was really, really good. I get to talk to a lot of NFL insiders. I feel like I'm in a really blessed position to be able to do that. This was one of the best ones I've talked with in quite a while. So I just really felt very strong about this interview. You'll hear it coming up in segment number 2 and segment number 3. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day. Just give you quick updates and a little bit other misdirection that may be floating out there from other NFL insiders on what they're hearing a couple days out from the NFL draft. And before we get into any of that, I'm coming to you live. If you're watching us on the YouTube page, you can see that I'm in somewhere that looks like there's a lot of white behind me, right? That's because I'm in the studio. ESPN Milwaukee, talked about it on Monday's show, something that I recorded on Sunday before I left Las Vegas and headed out to Green Bay, well, actually Milwaukee, and then had to drive to Ashwaubenon. There you go. I'm telling you, I stayed there overnight already. I booked my Airbnb there, and I still don't know how to say the name. So my travel went fine from Vegas to Milwaukee, into the airport, picked up the rental car, and drove to Ashwaubenon. And then the next day, drove back to ESPN Milwaukee. That's where I'm at right now. It's actually Monday evening. I'm recording this for Tuesday because I got to drive back to Ashwaubenon. And then I got to come back tomorrow to Milwaukee and then back to Ashwaubenon and then the next day to Green Bay for the next couple days for the draft. As you know how that goes. Again, don't feel sorry for me. This is fantastic. I love this stuff. I'm happy to have this opportunity. It's the first time I've ever been here. And let me tell you, man, the folks here at ESPN Milwaukee have been fantastic. Good Karma Brands radio group. They are awesome. Really, man, I'm telling you, they rolled out the red carpet for your boy. When I got in here, I walked into the door, and the lady at the front desk said, "Oh, you must be Q." And I'm looking around like, wait, how does she know that? And she said, "Oh, I was expecting you." I said, "Okay, cool." And I walk around the corner, and my picture's on the wall. Welcome to Milwaukee, ESPN Radio, Q Myers. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So my picture was on the wall. I actually took a picture of it. I took a picture in front of it, tweeted it out at your boy Q254. So if you're on Twitter, you probably already saw it. But I thought that was really cool. But, man, this has been great, very accommodating. All my radio shows and the podcast I've been able to record and be here at the studio all day long. So I definitely appreciate them. Look forward to the week festivities, not only here in Milwaukee, but obviously starting on Wednesday when all the big stuff really happens when you start to talk to the NFL draft prospects and also the analysts, right? The guys that are going to be there, the Daniel Jeremiahs, the Charles Davises, the Joel Klatts. But speaking of the draft prospects, and we will get a chance to catch up with them on Wednesday, the number started out at 17. It is now down to 15. And I've been told, don't look into that, Q. I've been told by anyone who will talk to me, don't look into the fact that certain guys are going to be there, certain guys aren't going to be there, and that the number is dropped. But okay, so just go ahead and classify that however you want to. But let me go over this list really quickly. Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, he'll be in the building. Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama, a guy to be paying attention to. Campbell, definitely pay attention to him, especially if the Raiders were to trade back a little bit. I think that he would be a guy that you would look at around the 15, 16 mark. Not necessarily 6, but I could see him middle of first round. The Raiders definitely have some interest. We know what the linebacking room looks like for the silver and black. Will Campbell, the other Campbell, the tackle out of LSU, he's going to be there. Abdul Carter, defensive end from Penn State, he'll be in the building. Matthew Golden, who I believe is going to be the first wide receiver taken, that's just me, out of Texas, he'll be in the building. Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan, could he be a future Raider? Right? If Genty is selected by the Jacksonville Jaguars, do Pete Carroll and company, do they go Mason Graham at number 6? That's a possibility. He'll be in the building. Maxwell Harrison, the cornerback from Kentucky, he'll be in the building. And Travis Hunter, defensive back wide receiver from Colorado, he'll be in attendance as well. Ashton Genty, all roads have led to the Raiders. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, is he going to even be available at number 6 for the Raiders? Like, so wild. It wasn't too long ago where I was saying, yeah, I don't know, 6 might be too high for a running back, to the point now it's like, hey, man, is that running back going to even make it to 6? It's crazy how a few weeks changes everything, but it really has. So he'll be there. Will Johnson, the defensive back out of Michigan, be there. Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. Jalen Milroe, the wild card. Daniel Jeremiah called him the lottery ticket. He'll be there. Quarterback from Bama. Malachi Starks, defensive back from Georgia, be in the building. Shamar Stewart, defensive end from Texas A&M. Super athletic freak. If others were in charge when it comes to the Raiders, I would definitely see them taking Shamar Stewart. Most athletic dude in the draft, not a lot of production in college. He's just that guy. But, man, his athletic traits are incredible. He's a guy that I'd look to be drafted like in the late 20s when you're a really good team and you can let him develop. When you're a team like the Raiders picking at 6 and you need a guy to make an impact immediately, he's not going to be your guy. Look at Tyree Wilson and the fact that he could be potentially on the block coming up this week in the draft. And then Cam Ward, also quarterback from Miami, will be available. So 15 guys. Started out 17. Jackson Dart's no longer going to be at the draft. And there's one other guy. I forgot who it was, but there's one more guy that was supposed to be there, but he's not. Now, when it comes to Jalen Milroe, and we've talked about him quite a bit to the point where I'm starting to think he might really be in play for the Raiders, right? I mean, it's funny the way we've talked to him and the way that conversation has shifted from where it was when it started to where it is now. I was talking about him maybe in the 3rd round, right? And a lot of people said, oh, Q, you got to go get your Alabama guy, man. Milroe, so athletic, right? He could throw the ball deep. And I was like, yeah, he can, but the intermediate to short stuff is really inconsistent. I'm not too sure about him. And now it's just, it's crazy, right? I mean, the fact that he's going to be in Green Bay at the draft, to me, that says that he believes he's going in the 1st round. Others tell me I'm wrong, and that's fine. I don't mind being wrong. I've been wrong before, so we'll see what that means. But now there's conversations. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN put out that, the Raiders have some interest in Milroe. He said that Milroe is reportedly being eyed by the Raiders to sit behind Geno Smith. So sit behind Geno for a year or two and learn and what kind of fit he can be with those athletic traits. Maybe he can even have some packages in that Chip Kelly offense. So, again, Jeremy Fowler just reporting what he's hearing, that the Raiders have some interest. Now, would they have interest? It's funny, on my radio show on Monday, I threw out the question, would you be intrigued by Ashton Genty and Jalen Milroe with the first 2 picks? I didn't say first pick and 2nd round pick. I said first 2 picks, meaning that they'd trade back into the back end of round 1. And people are like, whoa, you can't trade up in the round 1 and go get them. And I understand that logic, but then I'm thinking if he's going to sit a couple of years behind Geno Smith, would they want that 5th-year option? Would they take that chance? Would it be worth it, right? That's something to me that is it scratches my head, or makes me scratch my head, because I just don't know the answers to the test. I'm so glad that Thursday's coming up sooner rather than later, and we'll find out all the answers. But remember, and I had this on Monday's show with Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network, said when he was asked about Jalen Milroe, when he was asked about, a comp to him, like what's the comparison? Who could you compare to Milroe? Remember, this is what he said about Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, it's hard to find a comp for him. I can start there. He is an elite runner. If you just did a cut up and just with the ball in your arm and running, and you stacked him up with a really, really good running back class, just looking at him just as a runner, he would not look out of place at all. Like, he is dynamic. He can make you miss. He can break tackles. Like, there is zero question that he's going to have an impact with the ball under his arm. In terms of the things that to work on with him, he's not consistently connected between his eyes and his feet. That impacts his accuracy. The decision-making, you reference the turnovers, that's, to me, that comes with playing, that comes with learning. Being in a little different system this year, that didn't go quite as smoothly as you would have hoped. I do think he needs time. I do think he requires patience. And talking to teams, though, if you were to use the phrase with him that's used more than any other, of all the quarterbacks in this draft, that's the lottery ticket. Like, if you want to just take a lottery ticket that you could hit huge on, if it all works out and it all comes together, he's got the highest upside of anybody in this draft, and that goes all the way up to Cam Ward at number 1. But he is a long way from getting there. So it's to me, it's a classic second-round pick. You get your first pick in the bag, you feel comfortable about it. It's a double off the wall. And then now you can stop choking up and you can swing for the fences with Jalen Milroe. So that's how just about everybody universally views him. So, we'll see where he ends up going. And in terms of a comparison, the only thing I can say is, like, as a runner, he's as impressive as Lamar Jackson was as a runner coming out. Lamar was light years ahead of him in terms of the passing game at that point in time. And Lamar's continued to just improve each and every year in that department as well.
Again, called him a lottery ticket. Not really a good comparison out there for him. He's an athletic dude, obviously. I mean, he ran for $175 against LSU and 4 touchdowns, right? But there's the passing game, just very inconsistent. A guy that's an Alabama fan like me, if I thought he was going to be like a super stud at the quarterback position, I'd have been pounding the table for him a long time ago. Just don't know. Just don't know what to expect from him. If he could ever turn into a franchise quarterback, like, we don't have that real answer. We don't know. I know he's going to work really hard. That's the one thing that I could say. Yeah, I feel confident that he's going to work his tail off. He's going to give everything he can. But can he turn into that franchise quarterback is the question that I have moving forward. But to get a few of those answers and see how teams are feeling about Jalen Milroe, about Shedeur Sanders, about some of the offensive linemen, Ashton Jeanty available at number 6 or not, to hear that, you'll have to hear this conversation that I had on Monday on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, with Charles Robinson, senior NFL writer from Yahoo Sports. Matter of fact, you'll hear part 1 of that conversation coming up next in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, and that's Gametime. And let's face it, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it easy and fast to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%, right? Last-minute sports, concerts, comedy, theater, they've got it covered. And the all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create the account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Really want you to enjoy this conversation with Charles Robinson, senior NFL writer from Yahoo. This is just part 1 of the conversation. We had a really good convo. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to interview him, and I have admired his work for a long time. He works alongside Jason Fitz, a member of Raider Nation, right? Jason Fitz used to be at ESPN. He's at Yahoo Sports now. I have a lot of respect for him, but they do a fantastic job, and Charles Robinson is one of the most dialed-in guys across the National Football League. You want to talk about guys that have really good contacts? This is one of them. So when I had the opportunity to talk to him on Monday on my radio show, of course, I jumped at the opportunity, and I'm telling you what, it did not disappoint. Again, not even going to play the whole conversation, even though we're splitting it up into 2 segments. It's just that good as far as I'm concerned. So we start things off talking about the quarterbacks and the uncertainty about them in this year's draft. Check it out. Here's part 1.
When it comes to the quarterbacks, which I think that's going to be the story of this draft, it's going to be, where does Shedeur go? And if he gets past 9 with the Saints, will he get all the way to Pittsburgh at 21? I talked to a number of teams today, and it feels like this really could be a draft. If I think if their stack is accurate, this could be a draft where only 2 quarterbacks go in the first round. The second, obviously, being Shedeur Sanders. But I'm not as convinced that there's going to be this move now at the end of the first round to move up and, grab Tyler Shuck or, I felt like there was a lot of heat with Jalen Milroe, but then I go around today and there's a lot of 3rd-round grades on him for teams, and I'm just like, how does a team and I'm talking about like a consensus. Like you talk to like 10 teams and you're like, look, I'm not asking who you're taking, but help me kind of understand the positional stack. And like consistently, almost across the board, it's like Milroe's got all these third round grades on him. And I'm like, it only takes one team to really love you, which obviously would change the entire assessment. But it just doesn't feel like all the frenzy and the build up for the quarterback class is going to play out the way that I kind of thought it was. I thought we would have a splashier quarterback draft in the first round. I don't think we will, unless I'm getting, bad information from 10 different teams. But right now, I think it's going to end up being, Ward will go on top, and then we'll just stare at Sanders until he comes off the board. And I'll tell you this: I don't think Jackson Dart's camp has any idea if he's going to be a first-round pick. So, it's going to be a really interesting. It's going to be a really interesting draft. It's going to be you're going to see a lot of defensive linemen taken in the first round. You're going to see a lot of offensive linemen taken in the first. I will tell you, I will bet you anywhere from 16 to 20 picks will be offensive and defensive linemen in this draft.
I'm glad you mentioned Jalen Milroe and the consensus around him being a third-round pick, and I don't disagree with that at all. I'm an Alabama fan. I saw what I saw, and I know what I know, right? But with that being said, Charles, as you know how it goes, he's coming to Green Bay, right? I mean, I'm in Milwaukee right now getting ready for the draft.
Yeah.
He's going to be in Green Bay, and to me, that tells me he thinks he's going to go in the first round. What does that mean to you, knowing that he accepted that invite?
Well, so initially when he accepted it, I was super confused, and this is kind of the seesawing I've had with Milroe is, I thought, man, this is all along everything I'd heard. He's going to be a third round type of prospect. And then when we started to put together the All Juice team, and I'm talking to different guys, and we would talk about Milroe, a number of teams really love him from the standpoint of the dynamic part of his running game is elite. Like it is elite. Coming in, he's on the level of Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton. Just the best. And that's already half of his game. So it raises the floor for him as a prospect, I think, for a number of teams, because they go, hey, look, right now, a huge part of his game that we love is ready. We could literally do RPO packages for him, and he could go out and tear teams up immediately as the rookie, as a quarterback. The passing end of it, a lot of work needs to be done. But they're struggling to find a special quarterback, and when that happens, teams start looking for special traits. So they're like, okay, what's special about Jalen Milroe? His size for the position's awesome. His arm is great. His running is great. He throws a really nice deep ball. It's just – so you have a number of really special things, and that's what, to me, as I started to hear this, I thought, man, okay, now I can kind of see why Milroe got this invite. Like, this guy might end up being maybe somebody goes to Howie Roseman and says, we want the 32nd overall pick because we want 5 years of control with this guy. We're gonna maybe sit him, we'll redshirt him for a full year, and then we'll work him in and build up the passing part of his game. Really structure a team and an offense around him. That's what I felt. But then once again, I go back to the phones today, and I'm going around, and in the stack, it was I'm literally sitting here looking at my notes right now, and the quarterback stack, it was really, really consistent. Like I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams assessed him as potentially a mid to late second round pick. And then 5 teams assessed him as like a fringe late second, early third. So I'm like, okay, like that feels like kind of a mid second round, maybe third round type of player. But I also say this, I did the same drill last year, and Bo Nix got crushed like over and over and over. Teams were like, he's not a first round player. He's not a first round player. He's not a first round player. And then what happens? It only took Sean Payton going, he's my first round player. So that, to me, is what throws the wrench in this. You think you know everything, but it takes one team to love Jalen Milroe, somebody who's got a plan, knows how to utilize the skill set, is going to be patient and goes and gets him, and then that's how he ends up getting invited to the draft, and he comes off in the first round. As I sit here and tell you, everybody's saying he's a third rounder.
Right. That's great knowledge right there. Again, Charles Robinson, Yahoo Sports senior NFL reporter with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. So with that being said, okay, that's the quarterbacks. Obviously, talking about the Raiders, all roads have led to Ashton Genty going to be the pick at number 6. Charles, now it doesn't feel like Ashton Genty is going to even be available at number 6. How has all of a sudden this shifted where I was saying, I don't know, guys, maybe a running back at 6 is too high, to now it's like, hey, man, please just be there at number 6. Like, how has it shifted like this?
Well, I think you have Jacksonville sitting there at 5, and I think Liam Cohen, I think they really want to take an offensive player. And, I think at that pick in that position, it's sort of you're weighing, is it going to be Ted McMillan out of Arizona, or is it going to be Ashton Genty at the running back spot? And the thing is, we saw where Liam Cohen came from Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving, he smashed it with the running game. I had heard probably going all the way back to the owners' meetings. You started to hear like, hey, maybe Travis Etienne. Kind of pay attention. That's a guy that they may take phone calls on. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they got Tank Bigsby. That means they need a running back if they're going to move Etienne. So I think that's some of where the Genty talk comes from. I do think they like Genty a lot. I think they like Ted McMillan a lot. I would, if you ask me, what would I put my money on? I think it would be one of those two guys. And I know other people have Mason Graham kind of punched in there, but I keep going back to what are you trying to do in a draft like this? You're trying to special a superstar. If you're sitting there at 5, you can go, well, we can go get a defensive tackle who's really good, maybe on the short side, checks a lot of the boxes, but isn't perfect from a prototype standpoint. Or we can go get a running back that maybe he's LaDainian Tomlinson. If you can really get him worked into the passing game maybe a little bit more. But with what Cohen did with the running game in Tampa, it would not surprise me at all if that ultimately ends up being the pick at 5. And then I will ask you, what do the Raiders do then at 6 if he's off the board?
So part 1 is kind of like a cliffhanger. It ends with a cliffhanger, right? Charles Robinson right there asking me what to do, the Raiders do if Genty is gone at number 6. It's so funny because I've been asked that so many different times and I've had so many different answers. And depending on what mock draft I've done, I've come up with different solutions, right? I did the mock draft for the Locked On Podcast Network and I went with Ashton Genty. Did another mock draft for ESPN. I went with Shedeur Sanders, right? Did another mock draft. I went with Armand Membu. Like there's so many different, and this is based off of what's available, who's been selected and who hasn't. But it's so funny because I feel like that is what could happen in the draft. There's so many different ways that they can go. So you'll hear the answer, my response to that question plus more coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that is the Amazon Fire TV. That's right. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices. There's no console required. Grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play just like that. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football's 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. And if you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or maybe even your kids wherever you plug in. I'll tell you right now, the Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning-fast speeds. You need to stay competitive. I know what it's like. You got to be on the grind. You got to be going fast in those games, right? They will kick you out the club like they'd kick my old self out. Hey, get this old man out of here. Yeah, I'm not that. But you can be that. Head to Amazon.com right now /FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. No calls, no texts, none of that. The Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. The number is 707-654-4693. Hopefully you'll be using that number to respond to what Charles Robinson had to say. In segment number 2, you heard part 1 of the conversation, and we stopped off with him getting his Howard Cosell on, asking me about the Raiders at 6 if Genty is already off the board. So here's that question again. You'll hear my response, plus more when it comes to the Raiders and, well, just other prospects in the upcoming draft. Getting started on Thursday Here's part 2 of that conversation with Charles Robinson.
With what Cohen did with the running game in Tampa, it would not surprise me at all if that ultimately ends up being the pick at 5. And then I will ask you, what do the Raiders do then at 6 if he's off the board?
I was about to ask you the same thing. That's the $1 million question, right? Because again, Genty's been, the name that has been associated with the Raiders so long. So
right.
I'm looking at Armand Membu out of Missouri. I'm looking at him as a possibility. Maybe Mason Graham, you make a strength even stronger, adding him to the Raiders defensive line. And then I'll throw one other one in there. How about Jahdae Barron? It might be a little high for him, but the cornerback out of Texas, knowing that the Raiders need some help in the cornerback room, what would any of those 3 at 6 look like to you?
Well, so the interesting thing is, especially when you talk about Barron, it's like cornerbacks are going to come off really fast in this draft just because there's not a ton of, elite level players. I mean, basically you've got, 4 pretty solid, guys locked into a first round stack, maybe 5 if you add in Trey Amos. That's another guy I think is kind of on the fringe, and if you're considering Travis Hunter a corner. So you got Travis Hunter, you got Will Johnson, who might be falling now because of some of the medicals. As you said, Jahdae Barron, and then Maxwell Hairston. So I think because of the fact that the elite corners are going to go fast, I mean, I think that's something that you consider there. But I would think, how often do offensive tackles become available in free agency? Really, I mean, we're talking about good caliber offensive tackles. Very rarely, right? Nobody trades them. When I do a training camp tour every summer, you go from one team to the next, and everybody asks you, whether it's GMs or coaches, they're like, is anybody cutting any tackles? Is there a third tackle on their roster they're going to cut? Everybody's always trying to find additional offensive tackles. So to me, it's not a sexy pick, but yeah, I think you have to look long and hard at the best tackle that's available there on the board. And, to me, I don't know if that's Membu. I mean, let's ultimately see what happens, with the tackles. And I know a lot of people are sitting there staring at, Will Campbell and think he's absolutely going to the Patriots. We'll see. But yeah, I think offensive tackle would probably make sense if Genty's not on the board. And that kills me because I really, really want to see – I'd love to see Genty in a Chip Kelly offense. That would be so awesome.
Yeah, no, it really would. And that's kind of what we're all of a sudden deciding, hey, this makes all the sense, even though, a lot of us, including myself, have been late to the party. So just let's say Genty is off the board at number 6 when the Raiders pick. What is the drop-off between him and, say, a Travion Henderson, who maybe the Raiders could sneak in the second round?
Well, so I can tell you so I talked to 10 teams, and Henderson is averaged out as the 4th running back in the stack. So it went Genty, Omarion Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, and then Travion Henderson. But Judkins and Henderson are literally right on top of each other. When you kind of look at it, you average out where teams had them stacked. And obviously there's familiarity there, right? And I think between those two, they're just stylistically, obviously, very different. It's kind of like you look at Detroit's backfield and you're like, all right, well, do we want David Montgomery, the guy who's going to, pound you, has a great stiff arm? That's Judkins, has the size, ran really well for his size, really strong guy. Or do you want Jahmyr Gibbs, which I'm not saying that, Henderson is Jahmyr Gibbs, but he brings that. He's got that huge explosive play potential. And I think he's going to be available. If this holds true, most teams have Henderson coming off at the first 12 picks in the second round. So he'll be there. Everybody has Genty obviously going in the first. Most teams have Omarion Hampton going in the first. And if not in the first, very fringe, very top of the second. Then Judkins, top of the second. And Henderson right on top of the same assessment, top of the second. So I think he'll be there in the second.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's why I'm glad we'll have the answers to all these questions coming up in a couple days. Because man, this water has become so muddy, Charles, over the last few weeks, and now we're right here at the finish line. Well, we'll close out with this. We talked about Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU, possibly going to the Patriots. Maybe Membu is a guy that the Raiders would look at number 6 if they have to go some other direction besides Genty. What would you say about Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle from Texas, who at one point was the number 1 tackle in this draft class and then dropped, and it sounds like he's doing a little bit of a rebound now?
Yeah, no, he's third in the stack. So today, when I went through, it was a strong consensus that basically you had 5 tackles that were first-round quality across the board. Their grades all averaged out in the first round across all these teams, and it was Will Campbell at the top, Armand Membu, then Kelvin Banks was the third off the board, and it seems like the general assessment is, top 12 to 18 picks that, he factors in somewhere there. So, yeah, I mean, he's a very, very strong. There's no doubt he's going in the first, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't the first half of the first.
There it is. There it was. That was, I thought, some really good stuff. I mean, I mentioned it even on my radio show on Monday. Like, man, that's going on the podcast. I know a really good interview when I hear one, and I know a very good informative interview when I hear a good one. And that was it right there. Charles Robinson is fantastic. Hit him up on Twitter at Charles Robinson. Tell him that you appreciated the info. And again, this is just a few days out. And the thing I loved about the interview is that he literally was telling me, okay, I talked to this team. Okay, I had 10 teams that told me this, right? I mean, he literally talked to the teams, folks within the organization before he joined my radio show. Counting down, I mean, going through his notes while we're live on the air. Like, that's the kind of stuff, organic, that I love. That you want to talk about the draft and getting nerdy with it, and I say that with all due respect, that's this guy right here. That's me. Let me get real nerdy with it when it comes to those kind of nuggets and that kind of feedback. That's the stuff that your boy really gets excited about. So hopefully that got you fired up as well. And, I know they kind of muddied the water, but at the same time, maybe it brought a little bit of clarity that it's not just the Raiders that have some muddy water around them. It's a lot of teams, and really a lot of teams probably at this stage of the game are trying to make the water a little bit muddier. And I'll tell you, speaking of muddy water, hopefully the weather holds up. Man, I'm sleeping my Airbnb on Sunday night, heading into Monday morning, and next thing I know, I was like, man, what's going on? Is because it's kind of like a basement, but it's really nice. And so I thought maybe the people upstairs, like they got something like, it's late night and they're taking a late night shower. No, it was pouring. It was absolutely pouring. So they're not sure. The weather could be really nice on Thursday for the draft, or it might not be. And that would be less than ideal. So hopefully it's not raining. Hopefully the weather is a lot better. I don't mind a little bit of chill. I mean, it's Green Bay, so I don't expect it to be sunny and, all that, rainbows and puppy dogs out, but it's got to be better. It can't be pouring, man. It can't be pouring. We don't want that. Please don't give me Detroit. Don't give me what I got from Detroit. And that's not a disrespect to the city. The city was great. But the Wednesday before the draft, when we get to meet with the prospects, and I'm looking forward to this year meeting with the prospects on that Wednesday, we went out there, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'm in a hoodie, a sweatshirt, and a sweatsuit. That's what everybody was in on that Wednesday, and nobody really wanted to talk. They had their hoods up. They were really covered up their face. It was so cold, and it was just like the air was so cold. So I'm hoping that that's not the scenario, because I want these guys to be out there and happy to talk and having a good time and not just trying to stay warm like we were last year in Detroit. So hopefully that's a lot better, but that's for another day. That's for tomorrow, as this is Tuesday's show. And obviously, this is still Monday night. I'm recording it from ESPN Milwaukee, one of the fine stations that they have. I mean, they've put me in so many different studios today. It's been fantastic. So these guys are A1. So shout out to, if you know anyone that works for ESPN Milwaukee, let them know. Q said you guys are awesome, because they are. But we'll have, obviously, way more draft talk tomorrow. We'll have your calls and texts. I'll definitely get back to that. We'll have more news and notes as we continue to roll on. And like I said, get a day closer to getting the answers to all the questions that we've been asking. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.